Hi there. Today I'd like to read you a part from Traces of Red, which is the second book in the Reluctant Detective series. And this is the part where we introduce a new character, Kay, and this is when she meets Mirabelle. Kay consulted her Edinburgh A to Z. Yes, this was the street, Broughton Street. Not somewhere she'd been before, though she'd often enough been in the area. With John Lewis and the St James Centre only a few hundred yards away and the Playhouse Theatre not much more, she'd probably part here sometime without noticing the name on the corner. She walked down, counting out the numbers on the grey stone tenement buildings till she found the one she needed. Yes, this was it. Her heart started racing. She tried to remember what she'd heard about the calming effect of tapping on acupressure points in conjunction with affirmative statements. So, deep breath, start tapping. She looked around. Various people wandered or walked up and down the street, making it too busy, too public for the full routine. Huddling against the wall, away from the close scrutiny, she closed her eyes for the sake of concentration and settled for surreptitious tapping without speaking out loud the accompanying affirmations. Tapping, whispering, tapping, whispering. "Excuse me." The man stood back, his key in hand, waiting to enter the stair. Oh, sorry, I was just... Did you want in the stair? He held the door open for her. Yes, no, that is... Suit yourself. And he was gone, the heavy door swinging shut behind him. Mentally kicking herself, she leant against the wall to take a minute to let the pounding stop. Even in her distress, she could imagine how stupid she looked, standing there like an idiot, tapping all over the place. The self-help article didn't mention how to cope with public humiliation when executing the routine. If it wasn't that the tapping seemed to help, nothing would have induced her to make such a public spectacle of herself. Taking a deep breath, she scanned the intercom panel. Milligan, 3rd floor, flat number 3F2. Kay's gloved hand shook as she reached for the buzzer. Her whole body shook. She tightened her grey belted coat closer round her thin frame, telling herself it was the exertion of walking from the centre car park and then trying to execute an intensely private routine in an eminently public setting. Idiot. She could see herself, a shivering, shaking, frightened mouse. Everything about her was mousy. Hair, clothes, pointy face, the ability to make herself disappear into the woodwork. When did the trap spring on her? How long had she trembled in its grip? Willing herself to be calm, she tucked her neatly bobbed light brown hair behind her ear and buzzed again. Detective Inspector Burns had told her she'd need to keep buzzing up. Mirabelle never answers first time, he'd said. Mirabelle Milligan. Quaint name. Kay imagined a sweet old Miss Marple type lady, twin set in pearls, tweed skirt and brogues, running a missing persons bureau as a hobby. Probably didn't answer at first because she couldn't hear the buzzer. Kay kept her finger on longer this time. "Step away from the buzzer!" The disconnected voice boomed through the intercom. Kay jumped. "Sorry," she said, her mouth up close, but carefully not touching the dull metal grill. I thought perhaps you hadn't..." There was an angry buzz as the dark green heavy wooden door was opened for her. Yesterday's gourmet delights had left their stale odours hanging in the still atmosphere of the stair, and Kay wrinkled her nose in distaste. Curry had never been a favourite of hers. At least the stair was clean, brightly painted and well lit. Though Kay declined the offer of support from the well-worn wooden banister and climbed the stairs, drawing her coat close to ensure it didn't brush the walls. Even though she mentally tapped all the acupressure points, did it count if you only imagined the tap? By the time she reached the 3rd floor landing, she was calmer and had grown accustomed to the cloying smell. She took a deep breath in before knocking on the flat door. It made her dizzy, and the bright red door swung open under her hand. She steadied herself and pushed it further in accord with someone's shouted, "Just come in, it's open." It was not Kay's way to walk into someone's home without being properly escorted, but she expected it to be office premises, so that moved the rules a little, and she found she could overlook the informality. Checking her low-heeled mid-brown court shoes were clean, she stepped across the threshold. But it wasn't an office. The hallway was cheerfully decorated, with every door a different colour, and bright poppy wallpaper on the walls. Pictures hung on every wall. Grandchildren, she guessed. But so many? Then it dawned on her. These would be families reunited. Families Miss Marple. She must stop calling her that. Families Mirabelle Milligan had reunited. She tried to guess who had gone missing in this one. The teenager, possibly. She looked suitably shamefaced. And this one? The old lady? And who would Mirabelle Milligan be? The same cheerful round face appeared in some, in fact in most of the groups. A large, smiling, olive-brown face with deep chocolate drop eyes and unkempt curly brown hair. "Well, are you coming in or what?" Kay turned, stepping back, catching her elbow on the edge of the still open door. "Sorry," she said, rubbing the sore bit. "The photographs caught my eye." She stooped to lift the unopened mail the door had pushed into a bundle at her feet. I didn't. Her hand dropped to her side, still holding the letters. Twin set and pearls, this was not. "Sorry," she tried to control the break in her voice. I was looking for Miss I'm Miss Milligan." "Yes?" Kay realised she was addressing the owner of the round brown face with the bright twinkling eyes. A colourful, commanding woman, against whom Kay felt very small, though she had the advantage of height. She doubted she'd ever be the mouse who roared at this lioness. Mirabelle held out a plump, dimpled hand, beringed on every demanding finger. "Thank you," she said with a nod toward her post. "Oh, yes, the letters." Kay handed them over. Mirabelle smiled briefly and wandered into what looked like an office of sorts, or maybe a kitchen-cum-office. There was a desk. Buried beneath piles of papers and empty coffee mugs, the outline of a desk or a table was apparent. And there were at least 2 chairs, though it was hard to be sure because there were so many boxes and bundles of this and that, and toilet rolls, heaps of toilet rolls. Kay stared at the various pastel packets. Mirabelle stared straight at her. "You look as though there's a bad smell under your nose." She added the letters to the general chaos and extended the same sparkling silvered hand. "Mirabelle Milligan, welcome to the Caribbean Carnival." Instead of shaking it, she took Kay's hand and twirled her round and under their arms, her body swaying to an internal rhythm. "There ain't nothing that can be that bad. You need such a long face." "Oh, I thought..." Kay was thrown by the unusual greeting and the unexpectedness of Mirabelle's voice. Rather than the gentle, kindly Miss Marple purr, here was a broad, strong Edinburgh accent, temporarily overlaid with a playful hint of the West Indies. I thought you... She took a deep breath, tidied her tidy hair, clasped her still-gloved hands tightly together, and fought for control of her voice. "D.I. Burns," she coughed. "I assumed you were a private detective or something." Mirabelle clicked her tongue, inclined her head and winked. "Or something," she said. "It's the or something." "Oh, but Mr. Burns said..." "Mr. Burns says a lot of things." "So you're not a private detective?" Mirabelle shook her head, amusement written on her face. "An investigator of some sort?" "Of some sort," Mirabelle shrugged. "Nothing official." Kay frowned. I'm not sure I understand. Oh, I'm sure you don't, Mirabelle laughed, her large, loose body jiggling with mirth. With a shuddering sigh, Kay turned to go. Sorry, Mirabelle stooped to pick up a letter that had slipped to the floor. I help people find lost relatives, she muttered, grunting and panting with the effort of bending over. Kay turned back, the perplexed frown lifting slightly. Oh, you do? I'd begun to think... Unofficially, Mirabelle rubbed her back and felt through the folds of her dress, with no pretence she was doing otherwise than feeling for a failing band of elastic. And when I say help, I mean help. She hoisted her knickers up. You have to do the work. I just advise you what to do. Oh, I see. At least I think I do. You don't, Mirabelle assured her, but you will. She cleared one of the chairs by tipping its contents onto the floor and indicated Kay could sit down if she wished. Then she walked round the table that doubled as a desk, her large hip dislodging the papers on it, and sat herself in the other. Kay winced as Mirabelle's chair creaked. Do you know, Mirabelle said, I feel like wrapping you up in a warm blanket. Get a bit of colour into you. Justin, my husband. You're too young to look so worn down. You're what? Mirabelle looked her over. 34? 35? 33. Like I say, too young to wear that frown, girl. Mirabelle smoothed her unwrinkled brow with her fingers, her face contorting as though in pain, surprise, glee, sorrow in quick succession. Exercises. Good for the facial muscles. That's what you need. The frown that had taken up residence on Kay's face morphed from worried to puzzled. Not sure where this... Look at you, girl. You need to take care. You're going to be old soon enough. Why accelerate the process? I really don't know what this has to do with, she started to go. With anything, she shrugged. So Sam Burns sent you over. Yes, Kay sighed. Detective Inspector Burns thought perhaps you could help me look for my husband. Lost him, have you? Kay closed her eyes. When she opened them again, Mirabelle was writing on a scrap of paper retrieved from the litter on her desk. She wondered if she was expected to walk out, but she didn't. Instead, a little of the jelly went out of her limbs. Mirabelle looked up. Look, I'm obviously not what you expected, my dear, and I've had a rotten day. I'm grumpy as an orangutan in heat, time of the month and all, she said with a grimace to serve as apology. So why don't we just stop before we start? Stop? You mean? I mean, Mirabelle waved her arms about a bit, sending a glittering cascade of bracelets into the folds of her voluminous sleeves. You obviously are having a bit of difficulty getting along with this whole investigator missing persons finder thing. And since I'm going to need to see your home, your hubby's things, where he lived, how he lived, things like that, she spread her hands, and since that's probably anathema to you, Mirabelle shrugged. I don't think, I mean, would that be... Can't help you otherwise, girl. But I don't see. I mean, how could it help? What difference does it make how he lived? He's not there now, that's surely the point. Mirabelle stuffed her feet back into the soft, bedraggled canvas shoes she'd slipped off when she sat down. Oh, one to me, pet. She shuffled through some papers. I don't really do missing husbands anyway. Not my bag. No contacts. Don't know what Sam thought I could do. Gathering up a haphazard bundle, she headed for the door, dropping bits and pieces as she went. Kay picked them up and held them out to her. You dropped... Mirabelle nodded towards the desk. Better with youngsters. Young women, my speciality. Know what makes them tick. Don't you need... Mirabelle looked at the papers in Kay's hand. Shouldn't think so. Probably got everything here, she answered, hardly looking round. Perhaps if you... Kay mind neatening the bundle, or her hands went out as though to take the perilous stack from her. Then she thought better of it and withdrew the gesture. Mirabelle laughed. You can't bear it, can you, pet? My sloppiness. She walked over and let the files and papers fall back